Hello again, Virtuafriend. It's great to see you. Pull up a seat and relax. I'll grab you a cup of coffee. I'm so glad that the community has been so supportive of the store. It's been wonderful to see people from all walks of life come in and leave with a smile. I'm grateful just to be a part of it all. I have to admit though, that I've been feeling lost lately. The store is doing well, but I feel like something's missing. I'm not sure what it is, but I just can't seem to shake the feeling like it's not quite right. Do you ever feel that way? Like you're on the right train, but the tracks just aren't lining up. Like the destination isn't what you thought it'd be, or just not as rewarding as you've been imagining. When I'm feeling down, I can always rely on one song, Everlong by Foo Fighters. It's my go-to for when I need to pick me up. No matter what mood I'm in, the first chord always seems to snap me out of it and make me feel like I could just take on the world. Well,
today, Junior?
Oh no. Billy Madison's hoarding Uncrustables again. Last week, he punched a kid in the face for grabbing the last box out of his cart. Let me go make sure no one loses a tooth this time. I'll be right back.
I am the smartest man alive!
As the music video starts, two scruffy men jump out from the bushes. They've got their eyes set on a cheesy suburban house. The sliding door is unlocked. The house is seemingly picture perfect. Literally, the stair set is filled with the couple's happy adventures. Not an end in sight. They come up to the bedroom and we're met by something weird. The master bedroom is a corner room with the ceiling angled towards the sleeping couple, like this event is somehow always been inevitable. The woman's side is bright and spacious. The man's is dark, cramped, and cluttered with contrasting photos, battling the stairs we ventured up earlier. All appears well, but once you notice a crack, more seem to follow. Before we take a crash course on the lyrical and episodic meaning, let's take a trip to see how it all came to be. The year is 1984. Kurt Cobain has passed away, and Nirvana is no more. Dave Grohl is lost, not only from his loss of someone so close and important to him, but also because his passion for music is waning. For the next 2 years, he tried to fill in for Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, and was even rumored to be joining the Pearl Jam, but nothing feels like home. No matter how hard he hits the drums, the vibrations are just no longer reaching his heart. He was confident in himself and knew that was the only sure foundation. No matter what happened next, he was determined to make a name for himself. He went back to the drawing board and came up with his new passion, Foo Fighters. His first album was a total flop. Even though Dave worked on it all by himself, people still just called it Nirvana Light. All music bashed him by saying it makes more sense as pure aggressive sound than his songs. Rolling Stones jokingly scoffed, Foo Fighters sounds like an uncompromising spin-off of the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. If Foo Fighters has a theme, it's that the music remains the ultimate anodyne. Wow, what assholes. The album just wasn't what Dave hoped for. It did generate interest from record labels and other musicians though. Pat Smear, who toured with Dave and Germs and Nirvana, was eager to join as a guitarist. Sunny Day Real Estate was rumored to be breaking up, which meant the drummer William Goldsmith and bassist Nate Mendel were available. Things were looking up. The middle of 1996 was the clash of titans for Grohl. He was separating from his then wife Jennifer Youngblood, and to make matters worse, William and Pat were having second thoughts about joining. Touring wasn't bringing them together like Dave imagined. They needed to break the ice fast. There wasn't going to be another chance like this. They got just that at Bear Creek Studios in Washington. But even though it was winter, nothing was sticking. It was a mess with no clear direction once again. Dave wasn't on the drums anymore, William was. Dave was now lead guitarist and singer, but his newfound role just wasn't working well with what was rumored to be an overbearing past status as drummer. Their producer Gil Norton was demanding perfection at every corner, but there was nothing to perfect because the group just didn't have any harmony. The tale as old as time sings that between each trash take, Dave would play a melody he described as a Sonic Youth rip-off tune, like Schizophrenia. He chalked it off to just something to keep him level-headed, but he just couldn't let it go. One day that winter, he received a single envelope. As he pried open the cold letter, he unfolded and stared at the divorce papers from Jennifer. All he could do was play the same tune over and over again. The boys broke for the holidays. Maybe time away could hold some fruitful creative thoughts. 3 went to warm and cozy beds, but Dave's house and bank account were locked behind the divorce legalities. He made the best of it, crashing on a friend's floor with only a sleeping bag to call his own. Around the time of the first album and recording session at Bear Creek, there was a movie called Touch that hit theaters. Dave collabed with Luis Post from Virtuafriend for the movie soundtrack. If you've never heard of it, don't worry. The movie is almost scrapped from existence. It's terrible and forgetful. The main song, however, is soothing and reminds me of a classic from the Cranberries. With lyrics like, "I remember last night's dream. Could it be you're one of me? I've been waiting silently. Will you risk it all with me?" It's eager to wish that someone was whispering the song into your ear. Their voices work so well together that it's almost as if their fates were always destined to be intertwined. Shortly thereafter, they became a couple. So the story goes, Dave was lying on the floor in a sleeping bag one cold winter night. Might I add, it was stained with piss from his friend's dog. He just couldn't take it anymore. He couldn't wait till they got back in the studio. If they messed around again, the boys would go their separate ways. That's it. He'd be lost. The one chance to make a name for himself would be gone. The one thing for certain was the way he felt about Louise. Maybe she could be his catalyst for redemption with starting the Foo Fighters. As his thoughts caused the room to spin and spin and spin, the same stupid rip-off tune started to play. The noise ceased. The room became still. Finally, it all clicked. He scrambled for a pen and paper, jotted down what he could, and rushed to his friend's studio in the middle of the night. What we now know as Everlong was created in 45 minutes. He scuffed a version together before the whispers left his mind for good. It wasn't just his song though. It was Luis's too, but she was on the road. There was no way she could be there with him. Before he could figure out what to do, he brought the tape back to Bear Creek Studios, hoping the boys would have an answer. Norton and Dave called up Luis, plugged a telephone line into the studio, and they separated one to a monitor and one into a recorder. They matched the static pitch using a JT40. With the help of the boys and his love Luis, his dream was finally coming to fruition. Everlong was just enough of a jolt for the second album to gain traction. Sadly, the problem between William and Dave was coming to a boiling point. The more someone micromanages you, the less effort you're going to put in. That's probably how William was feeling. Everyone was able to get a feel for Dave's idea except for him. Dave always had an idea for how the drums should sound for each go-around. William commented about it in 2017 to the Daily Mail. 13 hours a day for 3 weeks. 3 weeks may not sound like a long time for a musical project, but when you're being watched and almost graded for each seemingly mistake, time moves slower and slower. AllMusic, on the other hand, claimed Grohl pushed aside drummer William Goldsmith during recording and played the entire record. And who could blame him? When you're the greatest drummer in rock, it's hard to sit aside for someone else, no matter how good your intentions. And Grohl's drumming does give Foo Fighters muscles underneath their glossy exterior. The project was done, the group was happy. Well, all except Dave and Norton. Something just didn't feel right with the album. Dave tried to let it go, but in February, he just couldn't take it. Dave met Norton in Los Angeles, and rumor has it that only the vocals and guitar sections were supposed to be worked on. With the stigma of Dave's creative control in the drums, it wasn't long before something was bound to happen. Everyone except William ended up in the studio. When he ended up finding out, he called Dave about it, but he wasn't told much. Now, I could never find a comment about the initial phone call besides a rumored nonchalant throwaway line like, "No worries," or "I'm just fixing some hiccups." Whatever the reasons were, Nate Mendel knew it was wrong. They jammed together since 1992. He owed him that much. Allegedly, all but 2 songs were reworked in Los Angeles. Regardless of whatever was said or done, in the end, William was out, and the spot needed to be filled.
I hate guys.
Oh God, guys.
I love women.
Guys, come on. Can you take that outside?
Come on, Grizzly Adams.
During all the commotion with the Foo Fighters, Alanis Morissette was touring halfway across the US. If you aren't sure who she is, you may recognize her from her classics such as Ironic, You Ought to Know, or Hand in My Pocket. Also, if you've ever watched Dogma, she plays God in the movie. And if you haven't, then all you need to know is her voice is really, really powerful. Her drummer at the time, Taylor Hawkins, was itching for something more. Just by chance, he heard Dave over the radio calling out for auditions for a new drummer. The two have been friends since the early days of Nirvana. They constantly jump into each other, and it was never a dull moment. Dave later described their interactions in his 2021 memoir, The Storyteller, Tales of Life and Music. Upon first meeting, our bond was immediate. We grew closer with every day, every song, every note that we ever played together. I'm not afraid to say that our chance meeting was kind of a love at first sight, igniting a musical twin flame that still burns to this day. The phone rang. Dave picked it up. "I hear you're looking for a drummer." When Dave heard Taylor's voice on the other line, he instantly cheered up. "Yeah, do you know anyone?" Dave would jump at the chance to snag Taylor, but number one, you don't mess with a god. Number two, you don't claw away to a taken bandmate. Alanis' music career was arguably at her peak. In '97, she won Record of the Year and Best Music Video from the Grammys. On top of that, she got Single of the Year from Juno Awards. The fame and money were guaranteed for Taylor, but just like Dave, he was itching for a success that he can call his own. Whether Dave liked it or not, Taylor was in. So that's it, right? The boys lived all happily Nah, I'm just kidding. Pat Smear just wasn't fulfilled. Maybe he was feeling like Dave was not even a year earlier. Maybe he had that itch just like Taylor did weeks prior. Whatever the reason, Pat stayed on through to the '97 MTV Music Awards. But before the band began to play Everlong, he introduced Fran Stahl as a new guitarist. He said his farewell, but it wouldn't be forever. He returned in '05 with a new purpose, but we'll get to those days another time. Returning to the flood of reviews in '97, Rolling Stones proclaimed "The Color and the Shape" is the first proper Foo Fighters album. They went on to finish by Dave's comment, "I'm not scared." AllMusic, who previously bashed Dave's solo work, screamed out, "It's all polished thunder, rock, and roll. That's all out precision, not abandon." Some may miss that raw aggression of Grohl's earlier work, but he's such a strong craftsman and musician that such exactness also suits him. Highlighting his sense of melody and melodrama, elements abundantly in display on the album's two biggest hits, the broody mid-tempo rockers, My Hero, and Everlong. Before we jump headfirst into Dave and Taylor's dreams, I wanted to go over the lyrics and what they mean to me. Even though we said goodbye to our friends for the time being, we'll see them real soon. Oh, hey Catbug, no, meet me outside, there's no way your shipment can come inside. Alright, I'll be right back. Urban Dictionary has provided a plethora of definitions for Everlong. It ranges from quotes like, "An amazing song that's always played at weddings. I've heard it like 800 times and I'm still not sick of it." One of my personal favorites was, "When you sabotage a relationship because it feels like your best will never be good enough." Oh, and we can't forget, waiting a very long time for someone who's never going to return. Songmeanings.com illustrated a point I can't summarize without chipping away at the emotional inner lining. Socrates said, "You can't define hot without something that's cold. You can't define greater without something that exists that's being smaller." Every single little thing exists as a compound in one. Life wouldn't exist if death didn't exist. Immortality or death wouldn't exist if immortality didn't exist. Thus, we continue to reach for something real, something that will last forever. The first verse starts out by saying, "Hello, I've waited here for you. Everlong." Vicario states it could be a possible reference to Neil Young's song Winterlong. I mean, time isn't meant to be literal in either sense. You don't know if this exact moment, this exact person. This wasn't a premonition, but an awareness to a strong emotional component of your life that's finally found its way to you. Tonight, I throw myself in two. And out of the red, out of her head, she sang. If you paid attention, you can notice Luisa's voice once the chords start to play. Though you can argue her do-do-dos are present at the start, I don't think it matters. Even if she does sing the verse before it, we don't notice. I don't think we're meant to. We aren't able to appreciate her full presence. The only thing we notice is a sliver of hope that she can be our Everlong. Come down and waste away with me. Down with me. Slow how you want it to be. I'm over my head. Out of her head she sang. The verse resembles the anxiety and rush of a relatively new relationship, whether romantic or platonic. I feel it's also due in part to the dangers of everyday life, but the important part of all of this is, regardless of what's going on in our life, we sometimes let it affect the people around us. I've always read the line as not every day is going to be perfect, but promise me you'll stick around and I'll do the same for you. Far from amazing, we make mistakes, but we can still make the time we have count if we're given the chance. The next verse by far is my favorite of the bunch. Breathe out so I can breathe you in and hold you in. It's like giving up a piece of your soul, them doing the same. And even though impossible, we want to forever be within each other. With each new inhale, we inevitably exhale something that was in its place. I can't help but think about art restoration and how it resembles our own humanity. We replace old dead cells with new ones every second of every day until our deaths. Are we really who we were a day ago, a week ago, or a year ago? Museums do the same with restoring art. They try to match what's in front of them, but it wasn't the artist's own hands and their true intention at the time. Cracks and damages over time disrupt the truth, but historians try to heal the history. What happens when the restoration is more than the original? At the end of the day, what matters most is how it all makes us feel, how it shapes us into who we are in that moment. Relationships are about giving and taking. It's essential the same way oxygen is to the body. Sometimes though, you want to take in that moment, never let it go. Other times, we aren't ready to exhale or even inhale. Sadly, we have to take a breath and keep going, or we're going to lose the next precious fleeting moment altogether. And now, I know you've always been out of your head, out of my head I sang. At this moment, he sees her for who she is and accepts who he is. He's come to terms with his humanity and trusts the soul at hand. Breathe and you miss it, but instead of Luis's do-do-dos, it's instead Dave's. He's ready to truly open up and delve into his deep thoughts. Genius's lyrics only state instrumental break with whispering voices. Originally, it was all speculation and myth as to what it was, but we now know what the whispering voices really are. Originally, the FAQ passed around stated it was 3 separate tracks of Dave's whispering. The first, a technical manual left around the studio. The second, a childhood story from a studio technician. And the last was a love letter. Thanks to a little unknown game called Rock Band 2 though, the myth was finally busted. When you miss a note in Rock Band, only the instrument you play cuts out. If you're playing the guitar and mess up, the rest of the instruments and singing will still go on. This is made possible because each section is actually recorded separately. Thanks to this, we can finally hear the whispering for what it truly is. So Dad would take the Sundays off, and that's the only time he can get any rest. And so, because we were out on Sundays, he'd make us hold his construction boots over his head till he sleep. And they were really heavy boots. And I used to say, Dad, come on please, and start crying because they're too heavy. The story is apparently from Ryan Bush, the studio technician at the time. Also, disclaimer, since the song is a re-recording of the original, it could be that they only re-recorded Ryan's story and not the other 2 details from the original FAQ. That's not what really strikes me as truly interesting and compelling though. Up until the game's release, it could have been anything, and we would only have perceived it as whispering between 2 lovers. I don't think we were necessarily meant to hear it. The memory shared was between the 2 behind closed doors, figuratively speaking. Maybe it wasn't a serious or traumatic event, but he still decided to open up and share it with her, the one he loved at that moment. The other detail to the whispering I always cling to is how men tend to hide their emotional and defining memories. This isn't a Chad moment, but stick with me here. I remember watching an old Auburn Preach video, though I can't remember the specific video or quote at hand. It just always hits close to home. The video in question was how men tend not to be emotional towards their partners. Abba jumps up and vents about how that level of trust isn't easily gained, and if you break that trust, it's over. They tend to never open up to you again. I remember telling a girl I deeply cared about at a moment from when I was younger. It wasn't anything super traumatic or important, but I still trusted her enough to share it with her. The next time we were at a party, one of her friends came up to me laughing about it. Even though it wasn't important, I just never opened up to her again. I trusted her to let her in, and she let me down. I treat the whispering in the song the same way. Once he opens up fully, the song strikes up harder, and the overwhelming feelings of trust, love, and compassion combust. The chorus bounces back again, and before he can finish the full chorus, the song ends. Oh hey, let me go help him. I'll be back. Stick around. As we jump back to the music video, we enter Dave's dreams. He's standing over the toilet as he tries to gather his thoughts. His outfit is marked up with a chain around his neck and a lock to seal the deal. The big white pin on his coat is yelling, "I'm a mess," and is normally the first thing you notice, besides his kick-ass Liberty spikes. We're clued in on some snickering, and Dave's view pans over to the same hoodlums that broke in his house at the start. For some reason, they're in his dreams with him, even wearing the same getup. Now that we can see the two in color and not in black and white, we notice it's Pat and Nate. The music video is filmed after Dave re-recorded Williams' drums, but prior to Taylor joining the gang. So even though you'll see Taylor, it's actually Dave drumming. At 29 seconds in, we can take a full view of the bathroom. The room is too large to be a gig restroom. It's almost empty except for a standalone tub and chain pull toilet. The sink is at the other end of the room. It's way too abstract to even feel like a real house bathroom, but way too home-like to be like a rock show. There's an exit sign above the doorway, but the thieves are standing in the way. Dave's punk rock getup combat the 50s styles bathroom. What's worse is Pat and Nate are angled as teddy boys, which are the previous gen's version of rebels and punks. Nothing feels right. The craziest part is at 31 seconds, Dave doesn't wash his hands. Hello? Nasty. The one glaring detail I always question is how the teddy boys enter their dreams, but Dave and Taylor don't recognize them. They seem antagonistic, but Dave doesn't flinch at the sight of them. The other detail I think matters is how the clothes are the same in real life and in Taylor and Dave's dreams. Everything else changes but them. It's almost as if they've entered their subconscious while they slept. He barges past the two as Pat's eyes locked onto the back of Dave. You feel unsettled, especially when you notice that Pat's head is higher than the door frame. He's only 6 foot tall in real life, but for some reason, the ceiling is way too low to be realistic. Dave hunches over so his Liberty spikes aren't sliding across the ceiling. Compared to the spacious and abstract bathroom, the party-going living room is tight and claustrophobic. We're trapped as the walls are closing in. Before we can study further, I feel like it's important to take a break. You'll understand soon enough. Michael Gondry is a filmmaker for the music video, and if you're a retired emo like me, you'll recognize him as a filmmaker for The Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. In the romantic drama, we follow Joel, played by Jim Carrey, after a fight with his then partner Clementine, played by Kate Winslet. He discovers she's had her memories of him erased. Heartbroken and distraught, he believes his only option is to undergo the same procedure. I won't spoil the film, but if you haven't watched it, I may scream. The importance of bringing this up is explaining Gondry's work ethic, his style of art, and his potential to portray the mind in the physical world around us is unique and eye-catching. At one moment, we see Joel yelling at a distant Clementine. He jumps out of his busted car, and you can notice the street around him morphing and losing detail. The clever editing makes it look like one take, almost as if the memory is dismantling in front of our very eyes. He's conflicted and scared, but no matter how hard he fights, he can never catch up to her. He can never alter the memory. One of Gondry's friends is also a director, and made one of the craziest films of the 90s I've ever witnessed. 2 years after the music video for Everlong, Spike Jonze directed Being John Malkovich. You may know this film for one of two scenes. The first being Malkovich crawling through a long tunnel until his eyes rest upon a stunning woman in front of him, with his face. The language, the words, and the menu, the people around him all have his face, all saying Malkovich. The second scene, and reason why we're all here, is Craig Schwartz's character, scheduled for a meeting on the 7th and half floor of the Martin Flemmer building. He stands in the elevator looking for the number, while the lady next to him already knows why he's there. She grabs a crowbar, pops up in the door, and he just awkwardly stumbles through a very low ceiling of the 7.5 floor. Everyone is perfectly fine with the predicament. It's like it's normal for them, but for some reason Craig isn't freaking out. Spike may have altered the style from Ganji's work in Everlong, but the feeling is still the same. Craig's in between floors of reality. He's somewhere you almost aren't supposed to be. The same goes for the Teddy Boys in Dave's mind. Dave Grohl is stuck in his dream, a past memory he's lived over and over again. Dave's earlier rush is slowed down to a relaxed pace once he locks onto the other partygoers. They're all lined up, one by one against the wall, in fashion relatively new wave, synth-pop, or if you want a larger blanket, ska punk, which combines two-tone ska like brass instruments with hardcore punk music. Also, shout out to the Cyclops glasses, by the way. I've always wanted a pair, but I'm convinced if I ever wear them in public, I'll be made fun of. Everyone seemingly enjoys the moment, except for Dave. He shuffles to the other side of the squished room until at 44 seconds, he sees the window. An all-encompassing brick wall blocks his path to freedom. No one else seems to care that they're stuck. As he realizes he can't escape, he looks for the next moment he's reliving. 53 seconds in, he spots his love, Taylor Hawkins. Somehow, the Teddy Boys are blocking his path once again. They're terrorizing his helpless angel. He grits his teeth, but before we can see what happens next, we're pulled away into Taylor's mind. A minute and 3 seconds in, we're pulled into the Evil Dead. Cabin in the Wood. Heck, let's be real, this is totally an homage to the Evil Dead series. As Taylor sits comfy in his Save the Whale sweatshirt, he's reading what appears to be I can't lie. I know exactly what he's reading. The book is from the collection First Love from Silhouette. The book is specifically My Lucky Star by Becca Cassidy, published in 1983. Eddie Marchin from Clicky Pizza did a deep dive into the classic book series. They state, after years of cornering the romance market for adults, Silhouette decided to horn in on an up-and-coming market for young adults in the 80s and created the First Love from Silhouette series. Library Things' website states the premise of My Lucky Star as, Stacy's family has been through a lot. Her mother has died and her father is still grieving. They've moved to their grandfather's house. She loves astronomy and falls for the guy in the astronomy club. She learns that the right boy is just next door. While the premise doesn't match the plot of The Evil Dead, maybe it will shed some light on the music video itself. While I don't know the exact age Taylor is supposed to be portrayed as in the stream, I can deduce a few things. My Lucky Star was published in 1983, Save the Whales movement originated in 1975 via Greenpeace, and the IWC banned commercial whaling in 1982. Just to be safe, The Evil Dead was released in 1981. The term young adults is generally related to 13 or 18-year-olds, but I've also seen it related to 18 to 24 as young adults. My overall guess is that this dream or memory is when the two changed from best friends to something more. Maybe Taylor went on a trip with Dave's family and he saved her from like a raccoon or something. I don't believe the Teddy Boys were originally there. I think they're either supposed to symbolize some antagonistic part of the memory, or they're causing havoc when they entered their dreams. This would mean that whatever or whoever enters the house at the beginning of the video aren't the same people that are in the basement or at the grunge gig. It could even mean that maybe someone isn't even breaking the house to begin with. Maybe rather the struggles from the outside world are creeping into their secured home and their dreams. We jump back to Dave's dreams as he clenches his fist as the Teddy Boys are harassing Taylor. She looks at him for a motion of help, and Dave springs into action. He opens his hand and it morphs into a giant weapon of destruction. Honestly, all I can think of is the high five prank in Jackass. I love seeing the giant hand swing into frame and demolish the guys walking into the office. He pulls Taylor away and smacks the disgusting duo away. The other partygoers look in disbelief. This part is always a red flag for me. I've been to grunge shows, I've been to metal concert, gigs in tiny apartments, the whole shebang. Fights are bound to break out. I love 3am Waffle House runs, but it's expected for something outrageous to happen every single time you go. Some of my favorite Waffle House memories are when the craziness ensues. People dancing in the parking lot, some random dude behind the counter cooking, and yeah, the fights. It's part of the experience. The same goes for grunge shows like The Memory we've been watching. Dave's actions towards the Teddy Boys are somehow abrupt and almost seen as wrong, like he's fighting the system that's controlling them all. Everyone else has just accepted their fate, locked away in that claustrophobic room. Dave and Taylor appear to be older and adult, judging from their wardrobe and attitude at the grunge party, compared to the cabin in the woods. This could mean that this is the first time Taylor really fell in love with Dave. He was there for her when her mom died, there for her at the cabin, and now he's there for her when there's assholes in public. Both Teddy Boys are smashed to the ground. They turn from people to dolls, then sizzle and burn. The skeletons left brighten for a second, then poof, only a black burnt outline, and the carpet remains. Before anyone can process what's happening, Dave and Taylor make a break for it. The sequence changes to the Teddy Boys, who are now teleported into Taylor's dream. Pat awakens outside next to a wood chopping block. Nate stumbles his way through a shallow basement. We jump back into Dave's dream. None of the other partygoers know what to do. I originally thought that these were real people. Most blanket theories are they're dreaming, but they don't go into any further. The other people could just be locked away in a dimensional state of limbo, like the Teddy Boys are just supernatural beings feeding off their subconscious. But even if this was true, it doesn't matter. We're here for Dave and Taylor, and we're leaving this event with them. Dave bashes through the next room with Taylor, and we see a giant landline blaring his alarm. His subconscious memory of Taylor tries to leave, but can't. Dave braces against the blaring sound as he tries to answer the phone. He jumps up from his slumber and picks up the phone. As he's startled and confused, he looks over at Taylor, like she's somehow calling him. We jump back into Taylor's mind as she barricades the cabin against the Teddy Boys. We pan out to this version of Dave, and he is a dork. He's unable to hear his screams, and instead is just doodling around in the midnight sky, picking up firewood here and there. It's cheesy, and just like the original Evil Dead. As Taylor scrambles to stop the two intruders, she rings the only number she knows, their house number. This is actually happening in tandem with Dave's dream. When she calls, this is when he wakes up and answers confused. Dave dives into bed and tries to get transported to his lover's side. Instead, he's transported to a very soothing dream. Luckily, the lovely legs turn into nunchucks made out of firewood his dorky variant was carrying. He charges in and Pat and Will are about to murder Taylor. He flails around with the nunchucks, but instead does the tried and true method of the giant hand. He bashes them around, and Taylor grabs a pan and smacks Nate in the back of the head. The two embrace, finally overcoming the madness. They throw the now doll versions of the Teddy Boys in the lake, and we see they're now standing in their real-life bedroom. Before the Teddy Boys can do anything, their heads shake and spin until the real-life Pat and Nate pull apart the getup. Taylor and Dave spring out of bed, and the song begins to wrap up as the colors and their resurrected love flash across the screen. The practical transitions in this video are among my favorite. Pat unbuttoning his jacket only to see it wasn't in fact his arms were hilarious, or how Taylor was always sitting on his drum stool instead of laying in bed. It's cheesy and just the way I like it. The story of Everlong isn't over yet. Heck, maybe it'll never be over. It's a classic tale as old as time. It's a song that reaches the heart and soul of anyone who takes a chance to breathe out, so the song can breathe you in. We'll never remember any defining moment, nor will we know that it's an Everlong. But the song can always remind you of those feelings. The tightening of your chest, the goosebumps running up your spine. You may not remember it every day, but inside your subconscious lies a chest of your most defining and heartfelt memories. Contrary to belief, Everlong wasn't that notable when the album dropped. My Hero was on the nose for Nirvana's late Kurt Cobain, and overshined Everlong's significance. Taylor commented on it when he told Annie and me. The funny thing about Everlong, and about like people consider that our biggest sort of hit, at the time, it wasn't really that big of a hit. It wasn't a huge hit at first. It's something that took a while. You know, Dave did an acoustic version later, just by happenstance. We were on Howard Stern, and he did an acoustic version, and that got picked up, and that got played more than the rock version did at first. Whatever Dave did, Howard loved it. The 7 o'clock acoustic riff sparked an interest in not only Howard, but the people tuning in. Dave went on to state, there was something about it that sort of changed the direction of our band. Up until then, we really focused on the rock stuff, Something happened that morning when we thought, wow, maybe we can do this too. That song blew up all over again because of that version. And it was purely because of Howard. Sounds crazy, but I don't know where he'd be right now if it hadn't been for that morning at the studio. Or what we would have done if we hadn't opened up that door to doing more acoustic stuff. So, we owe that guy a drink for sure. While recovering from heart surgery in 2000, David Letterman stated there was only one song that got him through it. One song with so much meaning, passion, and love that pushed him forward. Everlong. Letterman's first night back was on February 21st, 2000, and there was only one band he wanted to perform that night. Throughout the years, he invited them on the show 5 different times, and each time he was delighted to see them. For his final show, there was only one option: Everlong by Foo Fighters. The compilation of all the heartfelt and defining memories of the show sprung into action as the band played. We saw smiles, crazy acts, smoking, fighting, new celebs, and of course, fights. Even if we were just going through the motions, there's always something to look back on and appreciate. The performance added a whopping extra 2.5 minutes to the song as Dave screams his heart out. It's almost as if the fun will never stop. The photos and videos keep springing into action one after the other, faster and faster. The drums get louder and louder, the audience cheers, and Letterman waves goodbye. Foo Fighters almost always ends their set with Everlong. Sadly, that means exactly what you're thinking. Lollapalooza, Argentina, 2022 was the final performance of Taylor Hawkins. Later on in March, he passed away. The cause of death doesn't matter. What does matter is what that means to you. At Lollapalooza, before finishing their set, Dave stopped and said, "I don't say goodbye. I don't like to say goodbye, because I know we'll always come back." The meaning holds true to this day. We can see through the music videos, live performances, or even photos, Taylor and the gang will always be there. Though time can change, those memories and feelings will still stand the test of time. We may need our own compilation, bountiful picture perfect wall, or even a song to remind us of our lives, but it'll still be there, ingrained in our brains, our own little Everlongs, turning us and the world around us into who we always meant to be. I scroll through TikTok way too much. One thing that always gets me cheesing is when I see like an anime MV or just a meme and Everlong is playing in the background. It's like, even if I don't know what's going on, I could still get that feeling and sensation with the goosebumps, and I could just headbang and yell along. Oh God, you really got me in deep thought. I'm sorry, I didn't see the time. I'm really sorry for keeping you. Don't be a stranger, Virtuafriend. You're always welcome to come in here, even though just for a chat. I'll always be there for you. Here, take the snack, it's on me. Be safe out there, and I'll see you next time.